Hey there, thanks for stopping by. Today's video is going to be very short, just going over the rare Titan parts. It's just the continuation of the series of walking through all the parts in the game. All right, so we got the rare Titan parts up here. We're going to spend a little bit less time going through them in the beginning, and we're actually going to spend more time doing the gameplay. I think that might be a better way of doing these videos. So all we're going to look at is we've got the mind part, which is rain, body part, which is raise, and the soul part, which is impact. The critical kind of stats that we're going to be looking at are the move stat, which is 5, range stat of 1, and presence stat of 4. So let's go ahead and get into the waves and show you how to find this like always. That Incarnate is right here. You can tell it's got the 3 parts for Titans. It's also a rare blue border, and it's got the affinity of death. It's got that affinity because it's got 2 or more parts that have that affinity. So there's 1, 2, 3 that's greater than 2. So it's got that affinity of death for that Incarnate. All right, so let's hop into the actual skills. All right, so we're ready to start testing out the skills. Let's go ahead and use the mind part first. This one is called Rain. Teleport to the highest space in your presence, then pull all enemies 4 spaces. Attack adjacent enemies, adding defense. So what's important about this skill, right? So it's going to teleport in your presence. So your presence has got a value of 4. So it's going to be able to teleport in any area forward and behind because it's based off that presence skill. It's also going to be going to the highest space in that presence. Hey, editor Bluebear here. I just wanted to make a quick clarification. So even though it says teleport to the space, the highest space in your presence, there actually has to be a space that it's at least 1 space higher than your current level. It will not teleport to a space that's on your current level. It has to be a space that's higher than your current level and within your presence. So quick clarification, let's get back to the video. That's the only space you're going to be able to select. If there's multiple spaces in your presence that are of the same height, you will actually be able to select either or. Now the other big piece about this is pull all enemies 4 spaces. So it's not just 1, it's not 2, it's pulling 4 spaces, and they have to be in your presence in order to get pulled to you. So if you, let's say you use that ability right here and you try to use it, this Incarnate is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces out. So it's not going to get pulled in because it's not in the presence. And then the last part there is attack adjacent enemies, adding defense. And remember, adjacent enemies, that means it has to be within a space of that Incarnate. And I'm not entirely certain what the back piece of adding defense is, but my guess is that the attack adds the defense stat that you have to the value of the damage. I'll definitely go get clarification on that, but that's the way I believe it works. So with that, let's just go ahead and move to a place where we'll be able to teleport to a higher space and pull this Incarnate to me. So I'm going to go ahead and move, and it doesn't really matter where. Okay. And the other piece of this that's important is that wherever you face at the end of that move, or if you're using the teleport ability first, whatever way you're facing is going to be the way you face when you end your teleport. So if I teleport over to this square, I'm actually going to be facing this way because that's the way I started the teleport. Okay, so this is interesting because I would have expected that I could have teleported to any of these spaces back here because this is based on presence. I think this is probably a bug in the implementation. So I'll go ahead and report that. But what I'll do is use it because the functionality should be the same on the back end of the skill, regardless of where you teleport. So it's still a valuable just test to go run, and we'll go ahead and see what happens. So let's go ahead and use that rain. Again, this is the only one that's highlighted because it's the highest space in my presence. That's the only place I can teleport. So there's the teleport, and there's the pull. So the pulls always end, or always try to pull the enemy incarnate to your incarnate. So even though it said 4 spaces, even it's not going to go past that 1 space that it traveled because it ended adjacent to the incarnate. So you saw that it did do damage because it was adjacent to the incarnate. You saw it got a crit there, so that was pretty cool. So that seems to be working right. And like I said, I'll go ahead and get some clarification on the skill text of whether or not it's based on the attack kind of mechanism, or if it's really supposed to be based on your presence. All right, so let's get into the next skill. All right, so next we're going to talk about the body part. And the body part is called Raze. For 2 turns, gain an aura that has aura of 4. At the end of your move, pull enemies 4 spaces and burn them for 1 turn. So again, reading the text very critically here is very critical here. This ability is only going to work at the end of a move. Okay, not at the end of the turn, but at the end of a move. You have to move spaces for this to actually activate. So when you move first and not apply it, it's not going to work. You gotta apply it first, then move, and then it will actually do the ability. So what are we expecting this to do? Let's say we move to this space here. As long as there's an enemy incarnate within that aura of 4. So again, it's not based on the presence or the range. It tells you the aura size. As long as they're in the range of that aura of 4. So if I moved here, 1, 2, 3, that's going to be less than 4. So it's going to be within that aura. It will pull that enemy 4 spaces and then apply a burn debuff to them. And that burn debuff does 5% damage at the start of every turn, and it's stackable up to 10. So it actually can do 50% damage if you stack all the way up to 10. And it will do that, let's see, it'll stack for, it burns them for 1 turn. So it'll only last 1 turn. So let's go ahead and see if that works. Once the debuff is applied, we'll go ahead and watch the enemy incarnate's turn to make sure that ticks. So here we go. Let's go ahead and apply the skill, which gives me the aura. So there's my aura of Raze, and I'm going to go ahead and move. And the cool thing about that is that I can decide where I want to face after the movement. And this movement feature is being changed right now, so this will look different in the coming weeks or months, but this is the way it is right now. So now I get to select where I want to face. So I can just face on, head on, and we're good to go. So there's the burn debuff, 5% damage per burn you have at the start of the turn. So let's go ahead and end my turn and see if that ticks on the enemy incarnate. So there it is. There's that tick of 171, and that works just fine. All right, so let's get into the third ability here. That's called Impact. It's the soul part. Remember, all your soul parts have a 1-turn cooldown. It's your default ability that you have on every incarnate. So this is Impact. Attack target enemy space and lower all spaces in front of you by 1. Enemies in those spaces gain burn for 2 turns. So again, another burn ability. When that's applied, it'll do that 5% damage at the start of the enemy incarnate's turn. So the thing I'm noticing here is that we have a range of 1, and remember, all attack abilities are based off of your range. So this is showing that it's got a significantly greater range than 1. If I click this though, what will happen is it only shows this one space, because that's the only space you can actually attack. Let's go ahead and attack and see what it does. So you see all of these spaces actually got lowered. So that red highlight at the beginning is showing you the area at which the spaces are going to be lowered. When you click that skill, it'll actually show you your range, which is the attack piece. So the interesting thing about this, when I highlight over it, it's showing that all these highlights are hitting squares that didn't lower. So it appears that something additive is happening, because this should be based off your presence. At least the lowering of the spaces should be based off your presence. So my presence is 4. If we count the number of squares here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it worked correctly based off the presence, but the highlighting is not accurate. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and just let the developers know that that is inaccurate. The highlighting is inaccurate, but it does look like the skill worked correctly because my enemy Incarnate did get a debuff, a burn debuff for 2 turns. So that's working correctly. Let's go ahead and just make sure that it ticks by checking out. Yep, there's the tick. So it works just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and give the feedback to the developers and make sure that they're aware that that's going on. So one last thing that I wanted to test was actually showing the burn stacking twice. So I'm going to go ahead and use the impact ability again and let it tick on the next turn. So there's the tick. And remember that burn stacks up to 10 times. So this Incarnate still has a burn debuff on it. I want to make sure that when we use that ability again, it actually stacks another burn debuff on. So I'm going to go ahead and use it again. And there we go. And there's the second debuff. Good. So making sure it ticks twice. Yep, 179, 179. So it did tick twice. So that's working fine. The burn stacking is working great. Just shows you that it is a stackable debuff. And skills working great. So I'm back one last time to go through a couple critical pieces that I missed. So I wanted to show you that the impact ability, the other critical piece about impact is that it says attack at target enemy space and lower all spaces in front of you by 1. So that might be interpreted as there needs to be an enemy in front of you because of that range of being 1. But actually, it's saying that it's the space, okay? It's not the enemy itself, it's the space itself. So what we can go ahead and do is when we use it, we can actually go ahead and use it on that space and still see that the skill works and the terrain is being lowered, even though we didn't attack that Incarnate. So another critical piece here, make sure you're looking out for attacked enemy space versus attack target enemy, or enemies in your presence. It's very critical that you understand exactly how these skills work in order to get the maximum benefit from them. All right, so there we go. Just another quick video going through all the rare Titan parts. Just remember that the game is in alpha, so each part is subject to change. I think the fundamentals and the basics and the idea behind each of the parts and skills are going to remain pretty consistent and pretty stationary. But as we get more testing done, we can always find that there's some parts that just aren't really balanced and some changes need to be made. But this should give you really good idea for the feel of the type of abilities that the Titan has, at least going into the alpha and beyond. And when the game gets full released, I'll be making another series probably similar to this to actually go through the final part designs. If you like this video, feel free to drop a like and a subscribe. Toss some comments down below. Which one of these was your favorite ability? I'd always like to know. Which one do you think is going to be really strong in the game? Hope you enjoyed and have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.